session in seated meditation. So ideally we want the hips to be higher than the knees. So if your knees are up nice and high, sit yourself on a block or a pillow, some cushions, and elevate the hips. It just helps to release tightness through the hip flexors. Lovely. You'll notice it tilts you forward a little bit as well, so it might feel a little bit easier just to stay upright. Okay, so once you are comfortable, just a reminder, if anybody missed it, you will need a couple of blocks for tonight's session or something that can act as a block, and either a bolster or some firm pillows, maybe a rolled up folded blanket or towel to cushion your knees. So if we've got everything, we'll just place our hands onto the thighs and close your eyes or just lower your gaze. And as always, we'll take the first few moments of our class just to connect mind and body. Remove distractions. Anything that's been going on in your day, anything that's playing on your mind, just pop it to one side. And know that this next hour is all about you. Releasing tension. Letting go of any stress or anxiety. Just allowing our bodies to reset, rebalance and recover. Allow your attention to settle onto your breathing. Inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose. Deepening and lengthening the breath slightly. And following the flow of breath as it travels in and out of the body. Notice what changes in the body with each breath. Notice the belly rise and fall. Notice the ribs expand. Just try and welcome some softness into the hips, into the shoulders and the neck as we settle into our space. I'll stay here for another minute or two. Today's class is following on from our back care session that we did last week, but we're very much going to focus on recovering and repairing your back if you've been sort of sat hunched over a desk. And when that happens, we tend to tighten up through the front of the body and the muscles around the chest and the fronts of the shoulders, and we're relaxing the upper back and lengthening, overstretching it sometimes, the upper back, and that's what creates that bit of a hunch. So tonight's class we're going to try and correct that. We'll take some stretches that strengthen the muscles down the length of the spine and strengthen the upper back, while we try and release and open through the chest and the shoulders. feel ready. We'll come off of our cushions, just pop that to one side. And we'll come onto our hands and knees. Now I'm going to have my rolled up blanket, my folded blanket just under my knees, just for a bit of extra padding and cushioning. And I'm going to take a block or maybe a couple of firm pillows and just pop it towards the front of your mat. So we're going to start with a very gentle version of Melting Heart. And I want it to be really gentle because I know that it can be quite a deep stretch, and for some it can create a lot of discomfort around the neck and shoulders. So rather than that, we want to raise the ground up and not take this stretch as deep. So we've got the hips directly above the knees. We reach the arms in towards the front of the mat, and trying to keep the spine straight, lower your head down and rest it on the block or the cushions, whatever you've got. So it's just your forehead. So it's nowhere near as deep a version of this stretch as we would normally take, but it's a great one for starting out in today's session by being a little bit gentler on the neck, the upper back and the shoulders. So you might need to wiggle around, as we always say, wiggle around and find your version of the posture. Make any adjustments that you need. Think about the fact we're trying to lengthen the spine. We're trying to open the chest, the fronts of the shoulders, and relax through the upper back. And with Yin, once we've found that comfortable version, so 4 or 5, if you think about 1, I can't feel anything, 10, this is so intense, I'm in pain. We're going for that 4 or 5, somewhere in the middle. A certain level of discomfort, because that's just kind of part of it. But definitely something that we can breathe and relax into, that we can maintain our position with. And we just allow the breath to flow as we stay as still as possible and soften into our position. We'll stay here for a minute or 2 extra. Remembering that we're trying to relax the major muscle groups so that the attention of these Yin postures can go deeper into the joints where they can really make a difference. So visualize the joints, the tendons, the ligaments, the little bits of tissue holding the bones and the muscles and binding things together. And allow these stretches to sink deeper into those areas. Allow the body to soften and let go. Give yourself into the moment. And stay here for 3 more breaths. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the nose. And on your final round of breath, sigh the breath out through your mouth. It's just a signal to your body to sink a bit deeper, to go a little bit further. before we gently transition and lift ourselves out of this posture. Pop your block to one side. And now, depending on how you feel, you may just want to sit yourselves up, let the arms relax at the side, close your eyes and just have a moment of stillness. Alternatively, you might want to have a bit of a wiggle around, whatever works for you. So we've started softly. We're going to continue with that theme of opening through the front of the body, and we're going to come down onto our tummies, laying the legs out long behind us and just resting the tops of the feet into the mat. So we're coming into Sphinx pose here. So we've got elbows directly lined up underneath the shoulders and the elbows just squeezed into the sides of the body, palms flat, fingertips spread. Now you can make this different by lifting yourself up onto blocks, but you may find that that takes it a bit too deep for now. So stay here. If you need to make it easier, if you walk the hands a little bit further forward, it sinks you a little bit lower towards the floor and reduces the extension through the spine. So again, wiggle around, find your version, soften into it, release tension from the neck, and we'll try and hold still for 2 to 3 minutes. And here we're imagining lengthening all the way along the deep tissues woven in between the vertebrae. So think about all the way from the tailbone, that tucks just ever so lightly, so you've got a very, very low level squeeze of your bum muscles, just to tuck the tailbone down ever so slightly. That'll just stop the lumbar spine from pinching, and then dropping the chin down towards the chest lengthens all the way up through the back of the neck. Release any tension from the jaw. And again, just allow the breath to flow. Always remembering that you're in control of how long you hold these positions for. We aim for 3 minutes, but if a particular posture isn't working for you today, you move out of it whenever you need to. And just relax and rest onto the ground. If you're staying in the posture, just try and keep as still as possible. Focus and attention on your breath. Three breath here. Final exhale, sigh and sink. Just a little bit deeper. And then slowly lower yourself down onto your mat. And you may just want to rest your head in your hands. You might want to give your hips a bit of a wiggle if you've got any tension building up in the lower back. Or you might choose to push yourself back into child's pose and have a wiggle through the hips there. Loads of options depending on what you feel that you want tonight. Okay, so we're going to increase the back extension slightly now. Now that we've just spent a few minutes there releasing, we should have a little bit more freedom of movement if we push up a little bit higher into seal pose. So again, easier options if you wish. This time, same sort of thing, keep the tops of the feet pressing into the mat, just lightly squeezing the muscles in the glutes. This time the hands are underneath the shoulders, palms are flat, fingers are spread. We're going to push ourselves up, maybe straightening the arms for a deeper extension through the spine. And if this is too much, try and keep the hips pressed down into the mat so you've got some contact there with the mat. Otherwise you're going to be taking the whole of your weight. To make it easier, you walk the hands further out in front. And again, that should just lower a little bit more of the tummy onto the floor. So we're lengthening through the neck, lengthening through the spine, trying to gently ease the shoulder blades down the back towards the hip bones. And it just takes that hunch out so that the neck is long. Because this is a slightly deeper one, we're not going to hold it for quite the same amount of time. If you just concentrate on the flow of breath. Remove distractions from any discomfort. Discomfort is inevitable in Yin. Those of you that are used to this type of practice know that. What we don't want is pain. So anything sharp, any painful movements, we want to come out of the posture, find a different version. But discomfort, aching, it's just all a sign that we're doing the right thing. We're waking up our muscles. We're making our joints healthier, and we're making a difference to that connective tissue around the body. Anything that feels like pins and needles, again, that's the bad sort of pain. So we come out of it again. 3 more breaths here. Again, either rest your head in your hands, maybe turning your head to the opposite side, wiggling through the hips. Or after 2 rounds of that, you might want to do a few rolling child's poses and just, oh, that feels really nice actually. Just releases tension Just a little bit of blood flowing back into the joints, into the muscles. But it's soft and it's still a gentle movement. Just easing forwards and back into child's pose. And relax. So up onto hands and knees. We're going to come into a dragon lunge. Again, a soft version of dragon lunge. And we're going to try and add a little bit of rotation again for the upper back, if that works for you. If it doesn't, it's fine. We'll just work on the hip flexors. So onto hands and knees, and bring the right foot up towards the right hand. So it's just on the outside of the right hand, if you can see that. Yeah. But we're lined up. The knee is over the ankle, so we've got joint supported. And by taking that foot a little bit wider, it just allows the torso to sort of sink closer towards the floor. And you'll notice that the hips sink deeper on the left side, so we're opening up through the hip flexor and down the quad. So if this is enough for you, then that's fine. If you want to add a twist, we're going to think about looking out over our right side. So we're pulling the right shoulder back, and we're going to just drop the arm around towards the left hip. So we're just sort of, you'll feel that in the right side of the chest and across the front of the right shoulder. So just to give you a different view if you're struggling, we've opened up there. The hand reaches behind the back and we're just sinking the hips down. Again, just relax the head and neck. Soften into the hips and allow the breath to flow. The exhales is where we're trying to find more space, but we find the space by releasing rather than pushing anything. It's a very gentle version. So if you think about what we're doing here, if you've sat all day at a desk hunching over, we're opening up the chest and the shoulders that we've talked about. But when we're sat at a desk, we're shortening the hip flexor and deeper into that joint, and we've got the quad muscles shortened the whole time. So by opening through the hip, we will be also releasing pressure around the lower back, because that hip flexor stretches round and over the hip. So we're releasing tendons, ligaments, connective tissue all around the hip and the lower back area at the same time as opening through the chest, the shoulder, and getting a bit of rotation into the upper back, around the thoracic part of the spine. 3 more rounds of breath. That last one sighs and exhales. And then very gently bring yourself back to all fours. And remember, it's really common to feel tender and achy as you come out of these stretches, because we have gone quite deep, and that's perfectly normal. You might want to just gently kick the legs back, or you might just choose again to rest in child's pose. Let's take a few rounds of breath just to reset and relax. there's never a rush with this particular practice. We'll come back to all fours. So moving on to the left side, we bring that left foot up, lining up ankles and knees, and the hands and the torso are just inside the thigh. So you might be able to wiggle that back leg further back a little bit, depending on your 4 or 5 that you're going for. And stay in this version if that's enough for you and you just want to focus on the lower back and the hips. If you wish to bring that rotation in, you're pulling the left shoulder gently back to open through the chest and just gently letting that arm flop behind. And you'll find that one side tends to always feel easier than the other. So just make any necessary adjustments. Relax the head and the neck. Allow the breath to flow. Stillness and softness. Just check in again with the jaw, make sure you're not clenching your teeth. Have a wiggle of your facial muscles if you're holding tension in the eyebrows and around the eyes. All the time we're visualising that spinal area, the spinal column, the muscles and the ligaments that run all the way from the length of the tailbone up through the spine up to the top of the neck. We're thinking about that growing longer. We're visualising it softening. Finding space in between each of the vertebrae and allowing our life's energy, our prana, our breath, however you choose to visualize it. Just imagine that surging freely around the body as we release knots and tension. 3 more breaths. And gently, really gentle on the hips. And again, whatever movement you feel you need, or just simply rest. I'll let you stay there for a minute or two, just resting. And when you're ready, just come back up to a seated position. Now we're going to do reverse prayer arms. So it's up to you whether you feel more comfortable sitting cross-legged or propping a cushion underneath your bottom and kneeling up, whichever feels more comfortable and allows you to just be upright without there being any effort there. Okay, so everything needs to be relaxed, soft, and there's no effort in sitting here. So this can be a strong stretch, but again, remember we're going for that 4 or 5, so choose a version that's right for you. Before we think about the position, just take time to understand that it's all about pulling the shoulders back. So it doesn't matter if you can get your hands behind your back, if your shoulders have rolled forward and you've hunched through the spine, that's not what we're going for. So it's all about opening through the chest, opening across the fronts of the shoulders, and then reach wherever you can. So your version, if I show you, your version might simply be just clasping the hands together, but again pulling the shoulders back. Or you might go a step further and reach for the elbows. If you can comfortably get into reverse prayer, it takes me a bit of wiggling. You can pop the hands together, but again, make sure you've got the shoulders back and they're not rolled forward. Once they're rolled forward, you've just kind of lost the whole point of it. But you've got 3 options there. So have a wiggle, have a fidget, find your version. Remember, we've got to stay here for 2 to 3 minutes, so it does need to be a comfortable one. Close your eyes here or lower the gaze. And we'll stay here for around 3 minutes, maybe a little bit longer for this one. So get really comfy. Just give us an extra chance just to go a little bit deeper inwards. If your mind does start to wander, just acknowledge the thoughts that come in and out and bring your attention straight back onto your breath. Maybe count the breaths if that helps to keep you focused and help you slip into that meditation. Each exhale just softens and opens through the chest a little bit more as the joints release. Tension in that fascia just lets go. And we know that we're making positive changes in our bodies. Rebalancing our posture. going to try and stay here for another minute. Final 3 breaths. And the shoulders will feel quite vulnerable, shall we say, as you come out of this. So be slow and gentle. Maybe give the fingers a wiggle. Maybe rotate the wrists both directions. Or just allow the hands to rest on top of the thighs. And allow just some stillness. So we'll move into our next posture, which is one of my favourites, supported fish pose. So if you have a bolster, grab your bolster. If you don't, then some cushions will work just as well. So again, we're trying to open and release the chest, open and release the shoulders at the front of the body, and we're creating extension through the spine. So it's a spinal release as well as opening the front of the body. So we place our bolster or our cushions at the top of the mat, and we've got our bottoms, our hips a little bit away from the cushions, and then you just roll yourself back. So the idea is that the back of your ribs and your head are supported by your cushion. It doesn't want to be right into the lower back. So again, wiggle around and get that position. So from the back of the ribs up through the spine, supporting the head. The arms can come away from the body, palms facing up to the ceiling. And you can extend the legs out long and just let them relax. You're going to tuck the chin a little bit, or if it's comfortable, you can let the chin tilt up to the ceiling. It all depends how your neck feels, really. As we breathe in, we fill the lungs and let the chest rise and fall. We're going to stay here for 3 to 5 minutes. If we've got the right amount of cushions and props, it should feel super comfortable and quite easy just to completely relax and release in this one. So again, follow the flow of breath. Count the breaths if that helps to stop the mind from wandering off, or take yourself to your happy place, whatever works for you. Meditation, again, is a real personal journey for us, and what works for one person won't work for the next. So all I can offer you is a few suggestions and a bit of guidance. And then really it is just up to you to see what happens. The less we expect from ourselves in meditation, probably the more you'll gain. Finding it difficult to relax, again just check in with the tension around your jaw, check in with the tension around your eyes and across your brow bone. Sometimes it helps to take a deep breath and sigh the breath out. Just see if you can reset yourself. We'll try and stay here for another 2 minutes, but if you're ready to come out of it, just feel free to gently release yourself, remove your pillows, your cushions, and just lay still, flat on the mat. Yourself sinking deeper and deeper. The longer we stay here, the deeper we're getting into the joints, into the connective tissue, the more difference we're making. Take 5 more rounds of breath. When you're ready, the easiest way of getting out of this one is just to roll over onto your side. So you're just sort of rolling off your bolster or your cushions and then just pop it out of your way. Oh, and lay down in Shavasana. My back feels all melty now. Staying there just that little bit longer just makes a huge difference. Just have a couple of moments to recover. Maybe wiggle your fingers and toes or just be completely still, whatever works. And for our final posture, we're going to take child's pose. So rather than disturbing you too much, just however you find it the most comfortable way of bringing yourself over. And you might choose to do this again completely supported with a bolster or cushions to keep you up that little bit higher, or you might just want to have a pillow to rest your head on. Again, the options are all yours. I'm going to take my knees wide and let my big toes touch, so I've got some openness through the hips as well. You may prefer a more narrower stance. Again, play around with it. So just relaxing and resting yourself down. And you can either place your forehead down so you've got some contact there with the bolster or cushion, or you can turn your head to one side, whichever makes it more comfortable. We're trying to keep the hips pushed back onto the heels so that you get that lengthen through the lower back. Releasing tightness and tension from the shoulders. Closing your eyes. And here you can send the breath into the back of the body. So imagine the breath coming into the lower back, across the back of the hips. Nourishing breaths, helping to restore a healthy spine. If you have got your head turned to one side, just remember to switch it. So that you don't get a little bit of a crick in your neck. So we'll switch sides now. Take 3 more rounds of breath here. Gently bringing yourself out of this posture. And we're going to have a slightly longer Shavasana as a special treat for tonight. So bring yourself into your favourite position. We usually end with corpse pose, but I'm going to leave you to decide what your favourite Shavasana position is. You might want a pillow for your head. You might want to pop a cushion, pillow, bolster under your knees. That's one of my favourites. And you might even want to cover yourself with a cosy blanket and get really snug. In fact, I'm going to do that too. Super comfy, super relaxed, and a lovely reward at the end of the day. So just let the arms relax at the side of the body, the palms are facing up. Because we've had such a good stretch tonight, the spine and the back should feel completely rested. Your posture should feel balanced. The right and left side should be even. Just generally more comfortable. And we'll stay here for a good 5 minutes. Let's start by imagining the head being really heavy. Allow the eyeballs to feel heavy in the eye sockets. Maybe just sink a little bit deeper. The muscles around the eyes soften. The skin along the brow bone smooths out. And the jaw releases. The tongue just relaxed in the mouth. And that feeling of relaxation travelling down through the neck. The shoulders soften. Travels down the arms, across the elbows, down the forearms, the wrists, into the hands and the fingers. The backs of the hands just slightly heavier now, onto the floor. Bring your attention to your torso. Think about the chest muscles softening again. The shoulder blades laying flat and heavy into the mat. The tummy muscles and the lower back muscles are soft. And where you have contact with the floor, the back of the pelvis, just allow the hip bones to become heavier. To sink deeper. pelvic floor muscles are completely relaxed. The hip flexors soft. And allow that softness to travel down the thighs, across the knees, down the lower legs, softening across the ankles, into the feet and the toes. And now your whole body is at peace. Bring your attention gently back into the room. Just deepen the breath again. Maybe wiggle the fingers and the toes. You don't want to wake you up too much, just enough to get us back up to a seating position. So rolling gently onto your left side, you can keep yourself wrapped up in your blanket if that feels nice. And just roll onto that left side. Use your arm as a pillow and just stay crunched up in this little fetal position with your eyes closed. Just take a couple of extra breaths. And then using your arms for support, gently push yourself up. I'm staying covered in my blanket, that was lovely. And find a seated position. Wonderful. So we always finish with palms together, making contact with the chest, just to close our practice. Thank you so much, guys, for practicing with me.